Center of Unity for the FCT brief, where Shamama Imodu is going to be having a very important conversation. Esha, the conversation is with you. Inakwana, take it away.
Riyadh, and it's a beautiful Tuesday morning. And good morning, Nigerians, and welcome to FCT Brief. Now, this morning, we turn our focus to a development that has drawn serious attention across the country in the last couple of hours. The defense headquarters confirming a botched coup attempt against the government of President Bola Tinubu. While authorities say the situation is under control, the confirmation has raised critical questions about national security, democratic stability, and resilience of the Nigerian constitutional order. At a time when the nation is navigating complex security and economic challenges, this disclosure underscores the need for vigilance, transparency, and public confidence in the armed forces and democratic institutions. However, Nigerians are keen to understand what exactly happened, the extent of the threats, and what measures are being taken to prevent any recurrence, as well as the broader implications for civil-military relations. To provide expert perspective on this development, we are joined by Air Vice Marshal Olatokunbo Adesonya, retired, a respected security expert and former senior officer of the Nigerian Air Force. He will be offering professional insights into Defense Headquarters confirmation, what it means for national security, and the lessons Nigerians must draw to safeguard its democracy. Thanks for joining us, AVM.
You are most welcome. Good morning.
All right, good morning. Yeah, when the Defense Headquarters say botched coup attempt, what does that technically mean in military terms? Is it that just at the conceptual stage, or they were close to carrying out their threats?
Basically, coup d'etats, as it were, would either be successful or unsuccessful. So once it is unsuccessful, it doesn't matter at what stage it is. In this case, clearly it was unsuccessful because we still have the legitimate government of the day in power. So it was an unsuccessful coup. It would most likely have been at the planning stage. So, but certainly an unsuccessful coup.
Okay, and also another phrase that sounds technical that ordinary Nigerians will want to understand, it is under control. When we say under control, I'd like you to explain to Nigerians what it means, because coming from a military man saying the situation, there was a botched coup, it was stopped, situation is under control. Help us understand, when you use such technical words, does it mean more than it appears to the ordinary mind?
No, there isn't any serious connotation to that. Once any situation is said to be under control, it means that the government of the day and, of course, the top leadership still has control of the day. And basically, it means that there is nothing, no threat is being perceived. For example, speaking as a former Air Force officer, when we talk about air superiority, it means you are in a position where you are in complete charge of the skies, and the other adversary forces are unable to bear their own air elements against you. So in this case, it means that that's when we talk about everything being under control. It means certainly there is no threat at the moment against the government of the day.
Now, a coup anytime is a threat to cherished democracy. But with this one coming in toward the end of 2025, was it just an operation being planned by operatives in Nigeria, or there's suspicion somewhere that there are foreign external collaborators that are trying to destabilize the democratic governance we've had for some time?
Basically, there are many causes to a coup d'etat. In this case, I believe that as the trials proceed, especially if they are made to be public, we'll get to know some of the specifics. But basically, there are many causes to a coup. Sometimes it could be simply political, where it's simply a question of political elites trying to have control, or sometimes it could be a question of some form of superiority contest between top military and political orders. It could also be as a result of some weak government institutions. So if it is political, if it is military, it could be a question of poor welfare or perceived poor welfare, inadequate budgeting, and other things. And if we are talking about, and of course, there's always that possibility of external factors too, in which we have one government or the other that's external to Nigeria seeking a political change by employing what is known as hybrid warfare. And in this case, it will also include the use of funding of diaspora groups. And sometimes coups are also as a result of socio-economic factors such as unemployment, poverty, corruption, and even unrest, political unrest, strikes, and the rest. They are also triggers to political coups. So there are quite a number of reasons why a coup could take place. But in this case, the coup plotters or the alleged coup plotters will know specifically why they were seeking to overthrow the government.
It sounds strange because we've had this democracy for a number of years, and Nigerians we've been saying that, look, we have crossed the bar where such threats will come. But with this happening, how loyal would you say that the Nigerian military are to democratic authority? Or is this just a signal that there is so much disconnect amongst the military brass?
Well, let me start by saying that for me as a person, I was highly disappointed when I heard the news of, it started with rumors, and then when it was confirmed, I was particularly disappointed. But one thing I can say is that in every situation, it's always not possible to have everything perfect. And in this case, we have seen elements that have been caught in the process. There is a provision in the Armed Forces Act, I think it's in section 52 or so, that clearly forbids persons who are subject to service law from seeking, or from mutinizing. And mutinizing is further described, among many other things, as seeking to illegally overthrow a government. So take note that in this case, it was the same military that reportedly gave news of this attempt to the government of the day. So it means there were some bad elements, but then the leadership of the military was sincerely, and in this case, I must commend them, they were quite on their toes, and their intelligence network was able to timely intervene this attempt, and a report was made to the government of the day. So clearly it means the military, the Nigerian military, is quite loyal to the government of the day. If it wasn't loyal, most likely the coup could have been a success.
Now, if we look at the history of governance, democratic governance in Nigeria, people say that the administration of President Bola Tinubu has been one government that's taken very seriously the welfare of the military. We've seen it in certain increases and even the retirement package of senior brass in the military. If we have this kind of elements within the military, what would you suggest that the authorities of the defense headquarters or the various military institutions should begin to do? Because you just got some now, probably there are still some that are hiding somewhere. What exactly should they begin to do to ensure that those who are restive are calmed and also understand that there's a superiority of the democratic governments?
I agree with you that the current administration has done a lot towards improving the welfare of serving personnel as well as retired personnel. I remember when we were being retired in 2023 or so, I was a bit worried that it might be difficult to be able to meet the welfare packages of the number of generals and others were being retired. But surprisingly, it was done in a timely manner. And so, from feelers I've also got, the welfare of the military is being looked at. And we've also seen quite a number of recent acquisitions, military acquisitions of equipment and other things. So which means, and even the budgeting was also quite instructive. So it means the government of the day is doing a lot towards addressing the welfare of the personnel. Now, back to your question specifically, there will always be bad elements. But what the leadership should do is to continue or to sustain the current efforts ongoing. We have issues of civil military training. And I'm aware that the various services, both at the defense headquarters level and the other services level, have established various departments and directorates for civil military coordination and civil military cooperation. And quite a lot is being done to train Nigerian military officers that the Nigerian military remains subordinate to civil authority. So that training is being done, and I believe it should be sustained. Then it's also important that the professionalism of the armed forces of Nigeria should not be jeopardized in any way. When I talk about professionalism in this case, I will be speaking about the issues of welfare, the welfare of members of the armed forces at the level of the leaders of the military should not be joked with. Things like accommodation, things like salary, allowances, uniform, kitting, and even equipping. Like I did say, the government of the day is doing a lot, but I know that much more can still be done. One of the things I've always said is people think that Nigeria is spending so much on the military. But when we look at the budgets of even comparative countries in Africa, we'll know that we still have a long way to go. So efforts should be made to sustain the welfare of the personnel. Beyond that, the intelligence network, which I had commended earlier, should also be kept in a very high alert state, so that if there will be instances of people who are still seeking to overthrow the government, they will be nipped in the bud, just as this one was.
All right. I like us to also dip into this aspect of the welfare. When most times you talk in the military, you say officers and men. Now, what is the state of the welfare of men of the armed forces? Should also this welfare be deepened in such a way that they are also probably those are the higher the higher ranks can also take it deeper and ensure that, look, even the men are also carried along and their welfare is improved on? Because the bottom line of all you said is that the improved welfare of the military should be taken seriously. Would that also translate to not just the officers, also the men? When I've been talking, I've always been said military personnel. When we say military personnel, it implies both officers and men. Okay. Clearly, the men, even though they are of the lower cadre, they are very, very important. And the welfare is equally as important as the welfare of the officers. So there is no doubt that the welfare of the men must also be improved in order to ensure that there is content everywhere. Even though more often than not it is officers that plan coups, but at the end of the day, they also use the men to execute the coup. So it's important that the welfare of the men is also given a lot of priority. I agree with you on that. Okay, let's quickly take a second look at this coup. Is this a red flag of institutional failure, or the workings of our intelligence and counter intelligence operation that we're really doing well? Because like you rightly said, it was still in the military that they flagged it and made it known that there was a coup. Is it an institutional weakness, or our institutions, intelligence, is seriously working so that we can improve on it?
I didn't get the last bit of your question.
I said, is it that, is it a failure of, is it a red flag on institutional failure that we even have a coup that is coming, that they were nursing a coup, or the fact that they blew the lead open, that our counterintelligence actually worked, and we should deepen how to invest more in our intelligence and gathering?
Well, the coup plotters would know, or the alleged coup plotters would know why they were planning the coup. For those of us on the outside, we should never rely on social media news, but rather on official releases by the government of the day. And at this point, it's not been stated, even though some have said this as a result of some discontent, grievances, and the rest. But that is never an excuse to, in any way, plan coup. The truth is that coup plotting has become outdated, especially in Nigeria. It doesn't matter the level of dissatisfaction with a democratic government. At any point, the best form of governance will still be democratic as opposed to an autocratic military government. One thing that you can always say for a democratic government, irrespective of its imperfections, is that people still have a say and people still have a decision as to who they want to be their leaders, as opposed to a military dictatorship where leaders are, of course, imposed on them. So it's a combination of two things that, yes, some people might have their reasons for wanting to plot the coup, but then the various intelligence networks too were right there doing what they should do. And the truth is, I continue to commend them for this because it will have set the military back 1,000,000 times back. And I really am happy that this reported coup was nipped in the bud.
I like what you said, that it will have set the military back, and actually also set the nation back several
It will have set
years.
the entire nation back, actually.
Exactly. Now, it's that there was an alleged coup, and when the military say there will be court-martial, does that have to do with lack of transparency? Nigerians will need to know, when military men are being court-martialed, is it that they are denied their basic fundamental human rights?
That they will be court-martialed is in line with the laws of the nation. The law of the nations governing this situation is covered under Section 52 of the Armed Forces Act, which, to the best of my knowledge, does not actually expressly mention the word coup or coup d'etat. But that section provides for or forbids personnel who are subject to service law from mutinizing. And then that section further mentions or defines what mutiny is. Even though most people know mutiny as maybe two or three conspiring to defy or to disobey another in the course of military operations. But that particular section defines it further as when you have minimum of two military personnel, who are involved in an act that seeks to overthrow a legitimate government of the day. It's also called mutiny. And that section also provides that when that situation arises, such personnel will be tried under the court-martial. The court-martial is part of the formal law chain in Nigeria. Now, that many people might not know, military personnel are subject to military law and also subject to civil law. So every military personnel is aware that should this happen, that a court-martial will be in place. Now, the essence of a court-martial basically is a form of military justice that seeks to ensure that justice is not only brought to bear, but it is brought to bear in a timely manner. as opposed to when you have issues of adjournment that goes on for years.
Okay.
And of course, the accused would have the right to their attorneys, and so which means they'll be defended, and just as it will be in a normal court. So it is not a question of the denial of their rights. It's a question of simply following what the laws of Nigeria stipulates.
All right. Following what the laws of Nigeria say. Now, are there structural reforms that you think are urgently needed within the military and intelligence community now that we have reported coup attempts? There are reforms that we can bring to bear, government can bring to bear in this institution.
In the military in particular,
Yes,
or nationwide?
Military.
Well, within the military, like I did say, virtually everything that should be done is being done. That's why it took me, I felt surprised that there were still people who were thinking of planning a coup. And I looked at some of the names that have been mentioned, and I'm happy to note that there is no two-star general involved, and that, interestingly, they were mostly middle-level officers. So, and the reality is that so much has been done, and so much is being done, but human beings will remain humans. The reality is you can never satisfy anybody. The main thing that I will continue to hammer on is, first, that their welfare should remain a priority. Then there should be no room for favoritism of any form. So that it's all part of professionalism. So when somebody deserves to be posted to this place, post him to the place. And when somebody deserves to be promoted, promote him. So once things like this, and structures are in place for all this already. So I think that's why I will say it's a surprise that some people still thought of planning that coup.
Okay, you just mentioned something that when people are due to be promoted, they should be that there should not be favoritism. I'd like us to just extend that conversation to our men that are at the various war fronts, whether in the northeast, the northwest, the north central, every part of the country. How would you expect that this personnel be managed? Some have said they have stayed beyond the required period of time at the war front. So what kind of structural changes should take place so that those ones who have exposed can come back and be rehabilitated, others move in? Is it possible?
When it comes to those who are at the war front, ideally, there are stipulated minimum periods that should be spent. For example, when it comes to peace support operations, some will say 6 months, some will say 1 year. But there are instances when the situation on the ground will prevent that. For example, in 1997, when I went to Liberia as part of the ECOMOG operations, we were there non-stop for over 2 years. And yes, there was fatigue, but we also understood that at that point that it was what was demanded of us. And so we stayed the whole length, even though, yes, it wasn't the best, but we stayed that length before eventually we were rotated, as it were. And so in this case, rotation of people or personnel from the military front or from the various combat fronts will also depend on the number of personnel that are available. And experience also counts. So which means in rotating personnel, one of the things that are borne in mind is the operational objective. So rotation cannot be done cannot be done to the extent that it would jeopardize the operational objective. But I would all the same say that if it is very clear that we have this number of personnel, then there can be a gradual integration. I'm happy, for example, that more recruit training camps have been established. so if you can have more soldiers being recruited into the armed forces, then what can be done can be a gradual rotation of this personnel as opposed to a holistic rotation.
All right.
So that experience is not lost, familiarity with the operational grounds is not lost. So that certainly should be done because, again, what we call batic fatigue can also sometimes set in, and it becomes, it becomes counterproductive.
Okay.
So yes, there can be rotation, but it should be gradual, that you gradually infuse those ones that have just been recruited in order for them to learn from the experience of those who have been in the war front. That should be instituted if it has not been done already.
All right, Aviet, just the final one from you this moment. Would you say to Nigerians listening now to you that democracy is safe?
Well, interestingly, I'm in the same position as you are now. I'm no longer in the military.
Once a general, always a general.
I cannot speak for it. But from what I know as I time I left the military, and even from the feelers I get now, I believe democracy is safe in Nigeria. But it also behoves on Nigerians as a lot to remain patriotic. I've always said one thing. Many times, many Nigerians are unable to distinguish, their political bias from what should be patriotism to the country. So all Nigerians should remain on board. Sometimes these coup d'etats are planned because some civilians are also funding the military personnel for their own selfish purpose. So all Nigerians should remain on board. It's not just about the military. It's about the various civilian actors too. Everybody should remain on board to ensure that Nigeria remains one.
Thank you so much, Air Vice Marshal Olatokunbo Adesanya, retired, for joining us on this conversation.
It's my pleasure as always.
All right. If you ever said it all, it's a collective responsibility, both the military and the civil population, to ensure that our democracy is safe. And this is all we can take on this edition of FCT Brief. I hand you back to Lagos, where my colleagues are standing by.
All right. Thank you so much, Ashomamo. That was a really beautiful conversation. Thank you.